Welcome back to Oh, and Another Thing, your favorite news and politics podcast, your favorite news and politics YouTube show. Welcome back to those who are first-time viewers. Last week for our first ever Oh, and Another Thing YouTube session, we're back again on YouTube, back again as per usual on Spotify, Apple Music, Podbean. Those are the ones that I know that we're on. That's where Podbean, when I post, Podbean automatically posts to Spotify and Apple Podcasts for me. And a YouTube link that we make ourselves. So you have video of us doing this too as well. People said it would help. My advisors, if you will, told me that going to YouTube would help. So we're here on YouTube. We hope you're enjoying. Hope you enjoyed the scene behind me. As you can see, we have a series of portraits of our producer, Bertram, who's here with us today. I should introduce us. Bertram, our producer, is in the house today. Your host, Vince Patrone, here with you again. You can follow us both on Twitter. Follow Bert in the show at O and Another Thing, or at O and Another TH1, or just search O and Another Thing in the search box. You'll find us. You'll find him. That's his Twitter. He does a good job. This is where you can find all the show links, some occasional polling, little bits here and there about our relationship behind the scenes. It's a good account. Then if you want more political takes, retweeted news stories, pure rage tweeting at times, follow me at Vince_Patrone, Yukon Carnitas, a tool for the left for those of you using search boxes. So easy to find us there on Twitter. It's easy to find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Again, just search for the show title. You'll see us. You'll see our new logo. You'll see that we have rebranded as of 3 or 4 weeks ago. We've got a new logo. We've got new thumbnails. We're here on YouTube. We've had a lot of excellent help from our design team on that. So great work, design team. Really good job getting us on to the next level of things here. We have a great pod for you today. If you've missed any podcast, sorry, I blacked out there. I blanked there. If you've missed anything, you can always go back and listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Find us there. We have a great show for you today. It's all about our country facing an unprecedented, unless you count the race riots in Charlottesville a couple years ago, an unprecedented amount of both sides news coverage at a time when it when it is more dangerous than ever before. See COVID-19 for the reason why. As per usual, when the media does this, it's happening again to protect the ego of a healthy handful of nuts from the other side of the aisle on this issue and from any given state. It's not that many people will talk all about that on this week's midweek edition of Oh and Another Thing, all about that. What else do we have for him this week, Bertram? We're going to talk about crowd size. Because we're on to the arguing crowd size portion of this pandemic. We're to that point now. In case you're wondering, it takes a month and a half to get to that point. So we're going to talk about crowd size. We're going to talk about why it's okay to make fun of these people. I know usually we don't try to go out of our way to make fun of people here at Oh and Another Thing, but we're going to talk about why it's okay to not so much make fun of, but more so ostracize these people that are going to these rallies that we want to ignore, but we're forced to talk about here. And hopefully this is the last time we have to talk about them on this pod and on this channel. We'll talk about that. And oil, you say? That's right. All that and all the other things on this week's Oh and Another Thing right after this. Hey gang, it's me, your host, Vince. You just saw me a minute ago. I didn't really do a cut. You're hearing from me again now, if you're listening on the pods. The producer's starting to get into the shot a little bit, yeah. So anyway, we're here to talk again this week about normalizing the mask. We're about to live in a new kind of society where things are never the same as they were before, much to the chagrin of a small percentage of people out there. It'll be a new world where we're forced to wear a mask, where we're forced to wash our hands and carry hand sanitizers with us everywhere we go. But the most important thing is going to be that first thing, and I'll tell you why. The mask isn't to stop the germs from getting on you. To stop the germs from getting upon you, we don't have to wear hazmat suits or dress like those characters from Monsters, Inc., the ones who wear the yellow suits and go around trying to catch the humans when they get through the door. You remember the movie. Anyway, I don't need to explain to you guys the synopsis of every Pixar movie we talk about on this podcast, because we know it's aplenty. Yeah. That's the only way to stop the virus from really landing on us in public. So, what we ask you to do is prevent that virus from flying through the air. So, you cough, spittle goes. You sneeze goes. Inside those droplets is the virus. Like that. It lands on people. So, if you wear a mask, even a cloth face covering, it'll stop that projectile launch of fluids, fibers, and germs. Alright? It's not about protecting yourself. It's about protecting others. And we need to see more of it. Luckily, we look out our window today, we'll see plenty of masks, because the city says you need to wear them. All we can do is hope that it happens nationwide, but do your part. Just start wearing the dang thing. Wear it everywhere you go. Wear it to work, talk on the phone with it on. It doesn't matter if you're a little muffled to the other end, because at least you're not getting those around you sick. So, normalize and wear the mask. The mask that you want to wear. Yeah. More. Oh, and another thing. A totally normal. More. Oh, another thing. Right after this. Welcome back to Oh, and another thing. Back from the PSA, back from the break, if you will, here to talk about the latest on the coronavirus. Now, we don't have a ton of numbers for you this podcast. I don't have the accurate numbers per state by state right now. And that's fine. I think that's fine. That's fine. We just don't have them because most states haven't reported yet. It's just too early. We record this in the morning. It's 11:30 now. I don't even know if Cuomo talked yet for us here in the fair state of New York, if you will. So we're just going to dive on in. Again, this is all from the Washington Post, as all of our latest on coronavirus will be. They're our favorite newspaper here at home. Another thing, and we get most of our news from them, the AP, and Reuters. Also, that rag, the New York Times, from time to time. Otherwise, Washington Post. Anyway, so this is the latest from them as of 11:37 a.m. on 4/21/2020, man. So, let's dive on in. The United States is nearing 800,000 confirmed cases of the novel coronavirus, with more than 42,000 deaths reported. A significant portion of the nearly 2.5 million infections worldwide, as well as 170,000 COVID-19 deaths that have been reported worldwide. The FDA has approved the first coronavirus test that allows patients to collect nasal samples at home and mail them in for testing, a big step in the fight for more testing put on by the governors day in and day out. As we know, the White House doesn't want to give us a lot of testing on a large scale. They think we can open without it. Governors and, more importantly, medical experts have said that they do not believe that that is a possibility. They believe that testing and on a wide scale, and testing for antibodies, and whether you're okay to go out without a vaccine or not, all of it plays into it. So testing needs to ramp up, and we're seeing a key step in the right direction today from the FDA, allowing for these at-home tests. We'll be interested to see how they're distributed, whether they're done on a wide basis or whether you have to pay and have them sent to you. All yet to be seen. All unknowns here at O and another thing in regards to that. But good news. Bad news. Oil extended its slide a day after a historic collapse in U.S. crude sent prices below $0 per barrel. Stock markets were down across the globe, including on Wall Street, where the Dow plunged 500 points at the open. Munich has canceled its famed Oktoberfest, event that attracts some 6 million people, despite plans in Germany to gradually ease restrictions. As well, the Spanish city of Pamplona is also canceling its annual running of the bulls. So for people that were hoping to go to Spain this year and run from an angry group of bulls, Sorry. Also today, Trump will meet with Cuomo today at the White House to talk about the virus. So they're going to have a meeting, a final get-together. The two heads are going to finally look each other in the eye and see what happens. And also, most Americans say it could be June or later before we will be safe for large gatherings to take place again, according to a new Washington Post U of Maryland poll. Most rated Trump's pandemic response negatively, and governors received overwhelmingly positive marks. So that is your latest on the virus. Now, what's been disappointing to see this week is that though there is so much happening with said virus, that it hasn't been able to get the coverage that it truly deserves at this point, that truly needs to be had for people to fully understand, fully recognize the dangers of, and fully realize that this isn't something to take lightly, because we've had nothing but coverage of people taking it lightly. This week, again, our country is facing an unprecedented amount of both sidism, and to start off, that doesn't have to be the case. Both sides don't always have to be right, especially on subjects like this, where we don't have to agree to disagree. And that is different than compromise, obviously. However, the two at this point seem to have been skewed over time to the point where we have no real sense or differentiation of the two. So, to start today, what is compromise? What exactly is compromise? Of course, this isn't from the dictionary. I didn't look this up because we here know what compromise is. In a compromise, what we were talking about right now, a group comes together, workshops an issue or a set of issues, and boom, they emerge from the come together with an agreement where both sides take concessions and both sides get to leave the situation feeling a little bit right but mostly wrong, leaving us with a nuanced set of rulings, a nuanced argument, a nuanced principle, or whatever. It may not be as black and white and absolute as folks on a particular side would want it to be, but at least they leave with something. Now, this is how Congress works. More so when the last voice isn't a slimmed-down version of Foghorn Leghorn with a vendetta against poor people, like what we have now. But ideally, this would be how Congress works. However, what we are talking about today, though, is something much different. It is being wrong and leaving a convo or a debate or a come together being on the wrong side or being on the right side, and with a feeling like someone was clearly right, someone was clearly wrong, and you don't have to feel bad about that. And the fairness in the media rule doesn't always have to apply, though they never really apply it as much as they do in cases like this. We'll talk about that more in a bit here, but it always seems like whenever it comes time for fairness in the media, the side pushing conspiracies and misinformation and racism and poorly informed talking points and opinions always tend to be the side that get to benefit from fairness, from media fairness. It seems like you only hear about it whenever it's, oh, well, you got to be fair to the man playing catch in the front yard with his daughter who got arrested for breaking social distancing. Yeah, you're not very fair to the black father who got killed in front of his son in a car a year ago. So maybe we leave that both sides fairness out for a minute on this. And I have this feeling maybe 6 times a week or so, this dread that I sometimes get when I wonder if I wasn't maybe a little bit too much on the internet. Maybe I was a little bit more argumentative than I would normally be. And then I spin out of control and start thinking about deleting my accounts and never engaging in the internet ever again. I think that happens because we have been conditioned to see both sides or to look for it in all situations and hope that we can find it and that people do have good intentions. When the reality is, probably not. It's dangerous for the media to keep covering things this way and for us to keep feeling this way about certain issues, especially when it comes to coronavirus and other pandemics. Until these people are shown that they are wrong and until they are I don't want to say shamed, but we'll say shamed for being so ritualistic and without shame for their lack of real decency and true patriotism and what freedom truly is. Until we gather to say to these folks that they are wrong and what they are doing isn't worth the airtime or the ink that it's being told on, they will continue to think that they are in the right and that this could literally lead to more mass death than what we already have, especially in these areas where these gatherings are happening. And until we see the media say, you know what, this isn't worth covering. These people are a little crazy. These people don't speak for a large population set. Until we see the media start ignoring them, they're going to keep coming back and keep having more of these protests and more of these get-togethers, and it's going to get worse and worse until we learn to ignore them. More often than not, someone is wrong. That's just how it is. And this week we have seen on display a group of incredibly wrong people get treated as if they are just as right, just as plentiful, just as coherent and logical as other protest movements, if you can even call this that. Like Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter, the various different women's marches we've had, different gun reform marches that we've had, all of them. Any protest that has happened in the past year or so. However, this time we're faced with a group of people that claim to be fighting for their civil liberties, when what it really sounds like is they miss getting bad haircuts. They miss Buffalo Wild Wings. They miss going to Habit Lobby for their habit supplies. This group of 100 to possibly 200 people have come from across any given state to converge on state capitals like they are ready to shoot up the place. Something that if these very same protesters saw a black man or a group of black men or any minority group of people doing, they'd have the entire town police force out, guns drawn, and have a counter-protest with an excuse for them to throw the N-word around loosely. And we know that's true because we've seen these people in the photos. At a time that these very same folks have been stocking up on dry goods and ammo in underground bunkers for, finally having a chance to use these bunkers and these dry goods, instead they're mad they haven't been able to get to Hot Topic to pick up a new comic book villain face mask. So they can, one, look badass, like the Joker. What's more badass than a 45-year-old guy in a Joker face covering? I don't know, and I'd be hard-pressed to find out, I'm sure. And two, they won't breathe in any of that fake hoax virus that kept them from the possibilities and never-ending breadsticks at Olive Garden the weekend before. Yet the media insists on giving these folks microphones and the full attention of a 24-hour news cycle, oftentimes using misleading camera angles and different film tricks to allow these protesters to look larger in scope than they are. Not too uncommon to what a lot of teens do whenever they send certain pictures of themselves to certain ladies they're trying to impress. It's all tricks, guys, and we know them. Anyway, I digress. So for starters, these are not large groups. They are not reflective of a majority voice in the country. In fact, polling shows that as of last week, 17%, not 70, 17% of people on average thought the government was going too far. That's only 17% of people. That's not even a quarter of an electorate of people who think that the government is going too far, that these governors are taking it too far. Granted, the 538 is reporting that folks at this point are more worried about the economy than getting the virus themselves, which, not my job to tell people how to feel, but I'd probably more be concerned about catching a virus that is killing healthy young people at kind of a decent clip. I don't want to scare people. It is still taking more elderly folks than it is young folks, but there is a shocking number of people from the ages of 30 to 50 that are dying from this coronavirus. So I'm part of that. I think it was 52%, whatever it was, that are more concerned about the economy. I think you're wrong. Okay. So there's more people that are okay with these stay-at-home orders than are against these stay-at-home orders. And it's not a lot of folks out saying they care. It's not a lot of folks, but second and most importantly, it's not like a small number of people that are so clearly wrong and driven by a false sense of purpose it's such a small group of these people that why are we even listening to them? Why are we even sending news crews out? Why are we even bothering to report on these? Take a picture, throw it in the paper, and call it a day. I don't know what the Colorado newspaper is. I know there's the Denver Post, but I'm not sure if there's like a Breckenridge Times or
the Keystone Examiner.
A Keystone Examiner or whatever. I don't know what the Courier Express is for them, but whatever. Go ahead, take a photo there, throw it in the local paper. 100 protesters gather on state capitol against stay-at-home orders, risking lives, millions. Anyway, that'd be how you write it. But these people are wrong. Flat out, no arguing, wrong. And it's a small number of people, so small that we shouldn't have to even hear from them. These people are completely wrong. But they aren't just... There's a lot of arguments to be made. I know some people are saying, but aren't they just exercising their rights? And yes, they are. They are being allowed to exercise their rights. They are being allowed to break state mandates and gather in protest. No one is taking away a civil liberty that says that they can get together and protest. Not one civil liberty right now is being violated for these people. They're acting as if their civil liberties are being violated, whenever there is not one thing in the Constitution that says you are free to go get a sizzling entree at Applebee's. No one fought and died for you to go get your roots dyed. There is a debate to be had about what the government does and doesn't have a right to do, obviously. And there should be a debate about this. Should the government be able to track us and trace us to follow our contacts and all of that? There are real debates about civil liberties to be had. However, not being able to go to Lowe's for gardening supplies is not that debate. Also, these people do not actually care about those civil liberties, for other folks especially. It's shown itself over the past year. We could look at the decade as a whole and see an even more glaring view of their twisted view of what's right and what's wrong and what are rights and all that. But it would take too long to look at. It'd make us go for an hour if we looked at the false equivocations these people make. And there have been multiple cases championed by the left over the past year, from women's rights over their bodies to Black Lives Matters to protests for kids being locked in cages, pushes for mail-in voting that would truly make the right to vote available to all. Real civil liberties. But where are these folks then? Sitting at home, rotting their brains with Fox News, calling the people protesting ungrateful commies, amongst a whole other slew of slang terms. The only debate over civil liberties to be had is over face masks in public. That's the only one I'm willing to listen to. And it's hard to be on the side raising a stink about refusing services to folks for not wearing a face mask to prevent the spread of a coronavirus via asymptomatic carriers when you're also the side saying bakers don't have to bake for gay couples. We do not need to give into false equivocations because these people have never been challenged before. We don't need to just say, oh, but you know, these poor people in these communities don't feel like anybody's listening to them. Oh, these poor people that are living in these nice homes and, you know, go get haircuts every month and go out to dinners apparently all the time. No one's listening to them. Oh, it's such a shame. We really should be listening to them. No, we don't need to listen to them because they clearly care more about, again, their fucking haircuts than the 42,000 people that have died in this country from this fake coronavirus they keep talking about. We don't need to give in to them. We do not need to listen to these people. We do not need to shine a light upon these people. A very deceiving light that makes it look like there's more of them to listen to. Like there's a huge swarm of them gathering in these capitals. I saw someone post on Facebook this morning a meme. It was a person giving the middle finger to somebody, and it was the entire state of Pennsylvania giving the middle finger to Tom Wolfe. I saw the pictures from that Harrisburg rally. There's not a whole state of people there. There's not even a whole county, not even a whole town. There's 250 people in that photo. You see it from above, and it takes it pulls the curtain back on the whole operation. This is only a story because it's conflict, and conflict sells, and people pay attention to conflict. There is no substance to these protests. Bottom line is, what these people are protesting, again, these people are protesting that a virus that has killed, as of this morning, 42,374 people. What they're protesting is that this virus isn't that bad. That just because a virus is coming into communities, killing thousands some places, some otherwise young and healthy people, this thing isn't that bad. Simply because the only effect it's had on them is canceled plans. That's the only effect it's had on these people. I'm assuming. I'm hoping that's as far as it goes for a lot of them. But now, at this point, what they've done is put to risk people that they might care about, people that they took to those rallies with them, their kids, their families, I guess kids and families are the same thing, their friends, co-workers, people from their church. There was a story in the Post today about a pastor who filled a bus of people from his church, took that bus of people from that church to one of these protests, and then hit a counter-protester, backed into her with his bus. So we do not need to be nice to these people. The small number of wrong, poorly informed people. We do not need to beat around the bush when we criticize or debate them. They demand civility from everyone but themselves, and we constantly give it to them. We rationalize it by saying they are scared. Okay, well, it's easy to be scared all the time when you aren't smart enough to go look for further news on something. It's easy to be scared whenever you lack the, I don't even know what to call it, you lack the foresight to look further than the first Facebook article you saw on an issue. There's something to be said for naivety, for, I don't want to call it blackout stupidity, because I am, despite all this, still trying to be nice, because these people truly just don't know how to take in news, how to understand a subject. But they're also not smart enough or willing enough to go looking someplace else for another point of view. For the other point of view, the one they keep saying we need to have about them. And I understand that we want to be fair. And I understand that the media wants to not look like they're picking a side, and they want to look like they're not biased against Republicans or the right wing. And they want to end this tirade that they go on Fox News and that some of these politicians go on, where they get to say that CNN and MSNBC and ABC and these other news sources are biased against the president. I understand they want to topple that. I understand these news organizations want to go in and say, no, that's not true about us. We are doing it through a fair lens. This fairness lens is going to start getting people killed, because there is no fairness in a society where people are literally going out against not just governor's orders, but against real doctors and real scientists' orders, saying it's better for you to stay inside. We do not need to be nice to this small number of wrong, poorly informed people. We do not need to beat around the bush with them. We do not need to rationalize their fears. They haven't done anything to look further at an issue. They haven't done any further research to understand the problems around them. And it won't matter to them until something else is affected, aside from their last hair appointment or from their last get-together at Papa John's or whatever. It's not going to matter to these people, this small handful of people in these areas, until something happens to them. And until then, maybe we don't give them microphones. Maybe we don't give them cameras. Because there is something to be said about understanding and experience. And it's clear that these people don't understand any experience of oppression, any experience of caring about another person more than themselves. It's fake, phony, sheep type of people that are going to get more people hurt. So why do we continue to cover them? And also, not to nitpick here, but it doesn't help that these people absolutely suck at protesting. How lame of a protester do you have to be to go stand in front of a state capitol and scream about how you want to go back to work in a pandemic? About how you want to work. You want to work. You want to work. You don't want a handout. I want to hit rewind real quick. There was a time when the New England Patriots were a good football team. When the New England Patriots had a star quarterback. When the New England Patriots seemed as if they were unbeatable. The year is 2000, and I believe 16 or 17. The Patriots have just won their 5th or 6th Super Bowl. And I hate the Patriots. I don't hate the Patriots. Take it back, take it back, take it back, take it back. Okay. We should cover something here before we go any further. I'm a Steeler fan. I have found myself in a loving romance with a Patriots fan. Wonderful family full of Patriots fans. So I no longer hate the Patriots the way I did whenever I was a youth. I am more of a sympathizer now than I was before. So there was a time after the Patriots won one of their last titles. Bill Belichick goes to the microphone and he starts giving one of his classic rousing Belichick speeches. And you guys all play together as a team. And then he starts chanting, "No days off! No days off!" And you know what people in the sports world and across the country did on Twitter for at least 24 hours? A good portion of us made fun of Bill Belichick for chanting "no days off." Because you know what sounds fucking stupid? Chanting "no days off." There's no such thing as protesting to work more. It just doesn't make sense. There's a great opportunity for these people, and this is the sad thing about it, if you will. This isn't all bad. The government's not saying you're not allowed to work. We don't want you working. You working is bad for us because it's bad for the president and makes him look like shit. So you ain't working so we can win an election. That's not what's happening here. Okay, that's not what's happening here. Governors and states are saying you can't go to work because we don't know if you're sick because we don't have the testing to say that you are sick. So we can't guarantee that you won't spread the coronavirus to someone who could die from the coronavirus. So therefore, you are closed. Therefore, you can't go to work. Instead of viewing this as an oppressive situation by an oppressive regime of Democrats who just don't want you to enjoy your life and they want to take away your liberties, so communists, it's incredible how effective red baiting is in the year 2020. They've been doing red baiting for literally 80 years at this point. Since World War II ended, the Republican Party has been doing red baiting and doing it to an astonishing successful rate, and that needs to fucking stop. Red baiting shouldn't work in 2020 because guess what? Communism and socialism are different. And guess what? No one's asking for communism. We're just asking for the government to spend money on us that we're paying the government to spend money on us for. So, I'll digress. I'll digress from that. Not the argument we're here to have today. These people have never known real oppression. These people have never had to worry about whatever is going to happen to them next because everything has been fine for them. They're bad at protesting. They can't make a sign. And it's hard to feel bad for these people. And it's hard to feel empathy for these people because, one, they don't feel that for anyone else who's struggling or going through anything. And again, they're falling for the same tactics, the same Republican Party playbook that they've been falling for, again, since pre-Nixon. Since McCarthy went through and accused every senator he could of being a race-baiting commie. That was his entire platform. That was the Republican Party for about 10 years in the 50s into the 60s, and then it continued through there. And for some reason, it still works now with people saying that anyone protesting is a commie. Unless it's these people, of course. Unless it's these people. I saw a couple of videos of people yelling at nurses. And a little thunder. I can't believe it. I can't believe that there's actually people going to protests. I'm going to throw it in quotes again. And yelling at the people saving lives from these people's shitty actions. Because people that are going to these places, I promise you, we might not see hot spots develop from these rallies, from these get-togethers. But we will see a number of people still get sick. And probably a portion of these people possibly will even die because they have gone to these things because they've been infected by an asymptomatic person who thought that they didn't have the virus. And it's all very possible. And then these protesters want to go and yell at the only people that can save us from this virus, literally the only people who can save us from this virus. It's not Trump, it's not Pence, it's not the team. It's the doctors and nurses. It's the doctors and nurses. And they're going to go and they're going to yell at the doctors and nurses. Call them communists. Tell them to go back to China. It's so fucking stupid. And I'm tired of us having to act like we owe these people any form of respect. Like we owe these, and I'm going to say it, these boomers, any little bit of respect, because we don't. They wouldn't give you respect if you were asking for something. It has to do with, and I'm gonna take a step away from the topic here for a second. We've come a long way in what makes someone a good person. I feel like there used to be at least, a very low bar for what it took to make someone a good man, or to make someone good people. And there's backlash in this country for us asking for a little more from these people. It used to just be, Gabe's a good fella. He, might beat his wife around a little bit, but he goes to church on Sundays. Yeah, he's a good fella, good Christian. And that kind of used to be all it took. Hey, gives money. Hey, he goes to church, gives a couple bucks when he can. Good fella. That used to be all it takes. But now we ask for a little civility out of these people. We ask for a little common sense, a little courtesy, a little kindness, a little empathy, a little understanding for people that aren't them, that might be in different positions than these people are. And they're never willing to give it. Never, ever willing to give it. So why should we give it to them now whenever they're going to go out and do, we want work. And that's what I was trying to get at here before I started getting off on this topic here. We have a great opportunity as a nation right now to look at this. I know it's shitty, and the bodies are piling up across the country from this disease. Well, I guess from this disease, but from this virus. It doesn't have to be all bad. Just because you can't ignore your family on Sunday because the fucking Masters isn't on. It's not a bad thing. These people are freaking out because they're locked in their homes and they have to spend time with their families. And the government's paying them to do it because it's not safe for them to go to work as it is. And in a lot of these cases, these people aren't going to be making the money they should be making. A lot of people were working 2-3 jobs. Now they're only getting paid for one. Getting $1,000 a week for the one work they had. There is a difference between righteous protest, right protest, and good cause, and people just being fucking stupid because they don't want to have to, for 1 second, sacrifice something in their lives. There's a difference. These are spoiled, rotten babies in the streets all over the country right now. And here we are giving them a microphone, acting like they should have any say in anything. Why do we continue to give these bottom dwellers, these people who their most basic instinct is what's going to affect me most? What's going to affect me and my family, not what's going to happen to the other folks? We're fine here. We're fine here, they could say. But instead, no. They go out and they protest, and they fight like having this time together with family, this time together with people, this time to get better, pick up a new task, educate yourself. This is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Yes, okay, the virus is an awful thing. It's killing a lot of people, but you could be using this as an opportunity. I'm not saying you have to use this as an opportunity to start a business or to lose 20 pounds or to gain 20 pounds of pure muscle and start bench pressing cars. That's not what I'm saying. But you could use this as an opportunity to get a little closer to your family members, a little closer to the ones you love, talk to people. Have a sense of community again. Because for once, you have no excuse not to. But instead, oh shit, government's trying to make me hang out with my fucking family, and I don't like it. So I'm going to the steps. It's stupid. It's so dumb. These people are mindless sheep eating whatever the Fox News machine feeds them. And it's okay to laugh instead of making them come off as serious, righteous fighters for the good of the world. Because they're not. Because, again, they don't care about the civil liberties that they claim to be caring about. Because they only care about those civil liberties whenever it affects their flaming, sizzling entrees at Applebee's. So, there's righteous protest, and then there's people being little fucking babies. Right now, we have people being little babies, and we're giving them a microphone like they're serious thinking people, when they're clearly not. And now we're starting to see, and we'll close it out here, we're starting to see signs of trouble in sectors that aren't just food and restaurant management, that aren't just shipping and whatever industries people are getting laid off from left and right in this crisis. It's getting to the oil industry now. We're starting to see, again, oil costs nothing. All of a sudden, they'll pay you to take, not literally, they won't literally pay you to take the oil off their hands, but oil does cost nothing right now in terms of what the market looks like. And as we know, money is not really a thing. As we know, money is just an idea, essentially, because of how we see it doled out. And good news on that front, there is more money coming to small businesses. Hopefully, they're close to making a deal on the Hill today that'll get money to small businesses, to hospitals, get us money for testing. Thank you to the Democrats on the Hill who got us money for testing and for hospitals instead of just for small businesses. Shout out to the small businesses that need that money. Shout out to them finally being able to get that money. But it's good that we can still do two things at once on the Hill. That being said, we are still starting to see massive losses in the oil and gas business, and that is bad news because those are big industries. They employ a lot of people, and a lot of people have their own businesses in that, and a lot of those people are now losing jobs, losing profit, and it's going to start causing more unemployment in a sector that may not have expected to have that. Demand is not there for the supply. We have surpluses forming everywhere, so the price of a gallon or price of a barrel of oil drops because the demand's not there. So you're already seeing, and I saw this in the Washington Post this morning, a quote that said, this could be the final dagger in the heart of the U.S. shale industry. Great news for those of us who want a Green New Deal. Really good news for those of us who are saying that we don't need to rely on shale. And a lot of us have already seen that we have tapped the wells dry of shale. And it's easy to look because you look at some of these towns, and I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm from a town that was actually kind of pillaged by the oil and gas industry to an extent, where they put all these wells up, they stripped the land, they mined the land, they poisoned the water, they did your classic fracking things. For the profits they made that went to the industry, that went for the few people that were able to get jobs in the industry in the area, the ones that weren't shipped in from Texas. Let's bear in mind a lot of these people that were coming into the communities were coming from Texas because the people in Texas knew this was just a gig. This was just gig work. All the oil industry is gig work because, let's not forget, our energy does not come from renewable resources as of right now. It comes from fossil fuels, which you have to dig from the land, which after you dig them from the land, they no longer exist. They no longer exist in that land, move to the next place. Across states like Pennsylvania, they came in, they did all that. They had their oil boom for 5 years, and now those economies are crashing. And you're going to see those economies in those small towns crash further and further than they already were because of these businesses leaving. Just look at it. I'm sure there's a plaza in your town if you're listening in Middle America. I'm sure there's a plaza or a plaza or however you say it, that used to have decent stores, that used to have no empty vacant spots. I reckon if you were to drive by that plaza today, in some places you would see not one store there that you care to go to. Not one store there that does anything for a broader purpose for anybody. There might be a couple large retailers there, a couple large home improvement stores that stuck around, able to find a footing for themselves in the community. But otherwise, those plazas are closed, those plazas are empty. And it's because the resources aren't there anymore, as it is. Now you're starting to see people don't even want those resources again now. Those jobs are going to go away, so we're going to need a plan for the future. And this plays into what we talked about on the last podcast on Friday. There's a great chance for the Democratic candidate, Joe Biden, who has, again, he is an empty vessel for us in this campaign. He has not really given us a rock solid policy platform. He has not done that yet. He has things he stands for on his website, policies that he wants to put in place. But he has shown that he is willing to move. And this should be a simple thing for him to move on. It's a Green New Deal situation here where we have a chance to say, okay, the oil and gas industry, despite the president saying he will never let the great U.S. oil and gas industry down. So bad news for the people in the oil and gas industry. When the president says he's not going to let you down, We know what this president does. So maybe start looking for some new jobs. I digress. There's a good chance shale doesn't come back. There's a good chance that these jobs in the realm of oil refining, of shale refining, of drilling and all that, they do not come back. There's a good chance of it because, again, there are stockpiles growing. And, again, we have, I think I saw 10 million barrels of oil coming from Saudi Arabia today alone. That's just going to sit in storage for a while until we need to use it again. It's time for us to have the candidate, Joseph Biden, go and say, you know what? Clearly, this industry isn't going to be here for us. So what we need to do is focus on a way to convert these jobs that are now lost to green new jobs, constructing solar farms. Hear me out. Anybody who lost their job, any oil worker who has lost their job in this coronavirus catastrophe because of whatever you want to blame it on, mismanagement, overreaction, whatever. Anybody who is losing their job should be pining for the chance to get a job in the green new sector of solar energy. Put people to work building these farms, put people to work harvesting, processing, distributing, all of it. There's a whole new industry that we have an opportunity to open now that we have an industry clearly dying. And that's not a bad thing. A lot of jobs will be lost. That is a bad thing. But those jobs can be created again in a new sector that is better for the world. This doesn't all have to be bad. Everything we've talked about on today's episode comes back to a deep-held cynicism in the Republican Party, in the conservative way of thinking, that no matter what happens, there is a larger thing at play. There is a larger conspiracy. There is any number of things. But there's a deep cynicism that keeps these people from being willing to change and move away from the Republican Party that has them bound and relying on that party's power to keep them in their shells and in their bubbles. For the first time, these people are having to see their bubbles burst. They're having to see their cynicism come back and bite themselves, and they're seeing their cynicism doesn't have a home in a broader society anymore. That's what you're seeing play out in front of you, and it's okay to ignore that. Thank you guys again for tuning in to this midweek edition of Oh and Another Thing. We will be back again on Friday with more Oh and Another Thing for you to enjoy to take you into the weekend. Who knows what we will have to talk about on that day. You've made it this far. Do us a favor. Subscribe, share. We didn't talk about in the housekeeping. I flubbed up big time. Subscribe, share, tell your friends about us. Leave us a comment. If you're on YouTube, leave us a comment. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us there. Follow us on Twitter. Never miss any of the other things. Again, thank you for listening. We'll be back on Friday. Have a good week.
Monkey